There are several different ways to attract fish, ranging from the type of bait to different colors on your lures. In this week's Fishing Tips, Paul Nelson explains how speed is probably the biggest factor.
This week we're going to talk about speed. Now most electronics have a speedometer on there so that they actually tell you how fast you're going, and this can be a critical variable when you're fishing, especially when the water is warmer. If you're using a live bait rig, you usually want to go a little bit slower, maybe 0.4 to 0.8 of a mile per hour. I like to actually go faster until I see a fish on the electronics, and then I'll drop the speed a little bit. When I go over that fish, knowing that my lure is going to go through there or my bait is going to go through there in a little bit, so that I can work it a little more aggressively and slow that speed down and give that fish a chance to see the bait. When I'm fishing spinner blades, you've got to go a little bit faster. You have to go fast enough to make sure that that blade is still turning. Usually it's about 0.8 of a mile to 1.5 miles per hour, with the sweet spot being maybe 1 mile an hour to maybe 1.2. And nothing in nature really swims in a straight line for a long time. So even when you're casting lures, change speeds, pop the motor in and out of gear, vary it a little bit, go curves instead of a straight line to give that lure a little bit more look, or try to trigger the bites as you're doing that. When you're trolling for northerns or muskies, that's very important too. They usually want to go faster, maybe 1.5 to 3.5 miles an hour, with maybe 2 to 2.5 being that sweet spot. But kick up the speed, slow down the speed, change speeds. Just make sure that you're not just bringing your baits in one constant straight line. Vary it up a little bit, because that's what it looks like down there to the fish. So the more you pay attention to that speed, make sure that you see how fast you were going when you get a bite. Watch that speed and you're going to catch more fish. This has been the Fishing Tip of the Week, and I'm Paul Nelson from the Bemidji Area Lakes Guide Service.
Thanks, Paul and Dennis. We have one more fishing tip with Paul next week.
If you've enjoyed this segment of Lakeland News, please consider making a tax-deductible contribution to Lakeland Public Television.